Teju Babyface. Welcome, sir. Welcome, welcome. How are you doing?
I am so unused to doing Instagram live things that I didn't even know that I had to join you, then
Really?
request you. I was sitting here waiting for you to maybe
To
call me up or
call
something.
you on.
I didn't I didn't even know.
Trust me, I gotta tell you that over the last few episodes I've done,
Yeah.
I'm just learning it myself. It's a pretty amazing tech, but I'm glad you got to join us. And I've heard so much about you. I've read so much about you. So I'm really honored to have you on our program today. And community
Yeah, but
wise,
I mean, last I left you in the United States. So when they reached me, I said, Dr. Banja, I'm like, the Dr. Banja Oshika I know is in Florida. I mean, what's the Nigeria connection with all of that?
you see, Nigeria is my base. It will
Uh,
always be base. Even though I live here in the States, Nigeria is base. Because, as you know, I'm sure you'll even tell me better, we have a large population of people that need to hear something new. They need to hear
yeah,
something applicable to them today, that they can implement today to make their lives better.
true.
And I hear a lot of the things that you say, and I resonate with a lot of things that you say very well. Because at the end of the day, what I'm learning is that principles can be applied wherever you are. Geography doesn't matter. Geography doesn't limit you as regards to applying principles, and they work wherever you are.
Yes, sir.
Seed, time, harvest. For example, wherever you are, seed, time, harvest. But before I continue, I want you to tell our viewers who you are. Tell us about yourself, and then we'll start from there. But I wanted to give you a chance to talk to our audience because many of them know you, but some of them don't.
Okay, well, first of all, this is my first time wearing dark glasses to do anything. But I can see my colleagues do it, so maybe there's something in it that I should.
Makes you look kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah, maybe there's something about wearing dark glasses that I should tap
Tap into.
into.
Okay.
Well, yeah, my name is Teju Babyface. My real name is actually Gbade Wonuola Oyelaki, but somewhere along the line, I decided that Teju was a shorter name when I got to high school. In fact, those who went to Corona Primary School with me know me as Gbade, which is actually my first name.
I see.
But I somehow felt Gbade was too complicated, so I went with my second name in high school, Teju. And then when I started comedy, Teju seemed too short. So we're looking for something to punch it up. And then somebody suggested Babyface, and then we went with Babyface. And principally, I'm a comedian, entertainer, and I'm a man who is. I've always been in search of answers to my life, and so I'm still on the search, as it were. So that's it in a nutshell. Let's just say that I'm obsessed with. I've always been obsessed with success or success, as it were.
You're
I'm obsessed with it.
obsessed with success. I
Yes,
love it.
I
Love
am. I'm
it.
obsessed. I'm obsessed with it. If you want to get me hooked to anything, even series on TV, just show me successful stuff. Show me people wearing power suits, driving nice cars, going about talking about how to get success. Then you have me in that thing. I'm
Tuned in.
obsessed. Yeah, or should
Fantastic.
I say I'm obsessed with good success?
You're
Yes.
obsessed with good success because
Yes.
success could be bad. You're so right.
Yes. I'm obsessed with good success.
Fantastic. I mean, so I talk to my community about pearls because I've learned that my pearls that I would give anyone, any teaching points I have, any new fact that can add value to your life, comes mostly from my mistakes. My successes, I will give pearls, but for my mistakes, I will give very personal, ingrained, felt, etched pearls because they they happened to come into my system, into my awareness after I made a mistake. And in my
Okay.
correcting the mistake or in managing the damage control, I formed new principles to live by so that this mistake won't happen again.
Mhm.
You know? So I agree with you, obsessed with good success is
Yes, sir.
key. Is
Yeah.
so key.
There's a difference. There's a difference. You know what? I'm done with enough of this dark shades. Please let me wear my Papa glasses. I don't I don't know what they get in this dark shades thing that they do. I beg.
So the shades didn't work for you.
I'm not. This me
You
that
look
I'm looking
cool
at.
though, and you look cool like this as well. So either one
Yeah.
works. Either
And then
one
this
works.
chain self. What is happening? All these things are not me. This is me now. Let's all these other things. I
Fantastic,
beg.
fantastic. So I think what I'll do. Let's go back to the
Okay.
beginning of Bade before Teju, the very
Yeah.
beginning. It's a question I usually ask my guests because when I start from the beginning, I kind of open you up to share what you've learned, the lifelong lessons that have come your way, either from your experiences or from other people's experiences or from books you've read. Because you mentioned books in your talks, which is awesome. Because I really believe leaders are readers. So when I hear you mentioning book, that just keys me into you right away. Because you're not just going with your own experiences. You're going with the experiences that people took the time to write in their book, which are always very valuable experiences. So tell me something. From the beginning of time, what's the very first memories you have of your childhood? What's the first memory? What comes to your mind when you think of your childhood? The first memories you have?
So I am gifted that way, I guess, which is why I can do my job very well. Anybody who watches any of the things that I do when I interview people, I have a gift of being able to remember stuff. So I reminisce with people. I say, when we were doing this thing 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and that gift goes back to my childhood. So I remember a lot of things that my siblings who were they're experiencing it together, but they don't remember. And as far as that goes, I remember nursery school, and I remember just having a great life. Nursery, primary. Again, I was privileged to come up in a family that had access to resources. So my life was the Corona life when I was growing up, at least as far as school was concerned. Then at home, I had the traditional Yoruba upbringing, which is why I have the knowledge of the music that I do, because it always freaks people out when I get to singing all the King Sonia days and Ebenezer Obeys and the Salawa Beniz and Orlando was, and they're freaked out. How do you know this stuff? So I had the privilege on both sides. So my earliest knowledge is I'm very nostalgic by nature, and I keep going back to a Nigeria that seemed to be working at the time. Yeah, I keep going back to the fun and the happiness and the joy and the hope and all of that in Nigeria. So that forms the background of my earliest memories. In fact, my happiest place in my head at any point in time are my nursery, primary, Corona days. That's where I go to in my head if I had a time machine and I could go back, I would go back to Park Lane in Apapa and go back to Mrs. Alabi's class in 1985 and then relive those years again. So
Wow.
that's my background and my earliest memories. Yeah.
Wow, that's very powerful. So when you talk about the fact that if you had a choice to go back in time,
Yeah.
that's where you go back to. Why do you think that
Oh
is?
yes.
Why is it that time?
It is because King Solomon opines and he says that teach us, well, it's not King Solomon, it's actually the psalmist. I was going to say something else before. It's that teach us to number our days that we may apply our hearts to wisdom. It is that in the moment we're either looking at the past and we're longing for the past too much, or we're hoping for the future and we never stop to smell the roses in the present, which is why you invariably get nostalgic. Because if you think about it now, when you were in college, for example, you couldn't wait to graduate. You were tired of school. You were tired of the professors and the lecturers and all of this stress, and you wanted to be your own person. When you were living with your parents, you wanted to get out from their authority. You wanted to be your own person. But now that you're an adult, you look back and realize that those were some of your best days, and now you miss those days. But now you're making the same mistake right now. You're looking back or you're looking forward. And I assure you that as surely as the sun rises every morning, the days will come too when you will look at these days of which you want to get out and miss these days. So it is it is in that
Fantastic.
sense that I realized that if I could go back, I would stop every minute of every day and smell the roses, because it's amazing that even when you have even when you're mindful enough to do that, you will still find that you're not able to live in the moment long enough. You will always miss it. Talk much less of somebody who is not even aware at all and is just going through each day as if I can't wait for the next day. So that's why I would go back. I would smell the roses. I would live in those moments. I would hug my teachers. I'd play with my friends more, knowing that in the future I would miss this self-same days.
Wow. You know, I had a guest the other day, Dr. Olakunle Shoriyan, and he said something. He says the mistakes of the current are the future's gift to us as to what could be happening in the future if we continue the same track. In that same vein, he mentioned the fact, I mean, we talk quite a bit about being present, not staying in the past, but not staying, like you just said, not staying, almost ignoring the present, but longing for the future. Longing, like you said, to leave your parents' house, longing for that first car, for that new house, something you want in the future. But what is happening now and what you're doing now, but more important, how you're thinking now dictates our future. And any past you have, the good past, it's not bad to look back and have nostalgic thoughts of the good past. But the bad past, the bad history, so to speak, is what people focus on. And it makes them, it almost creates a trigger that prevents them from enjoying the current and affecting their future. So I always talk about how don't stay in the past. Focus on making new memories. Like you said, what you're thinking about right now, tomorrow, will be a memory. So make today count so that the memories you have of yesterday are the kind of memories you want to have, not the bad ones. So I hear you with that. Be present.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Be
present.
present.
Be present.
Fantastic.
Yes, sir.
So when you go back, when you go back to the Corona days and the way Nigeria used to be, like you said, you don't know where it took me to with that statement. The way it used to be.
Yeah.
It's still. I think it's still a fantastic country full of fantastic people, but with poor governance and a poor culture from the top. I think the cultures we have, yes, not people on top, the people that are being led. We still have our culture, and our culture still shines through wherever we go. That's why you have a Nigerian community virtually everywhere. Virtually everywhere. So our culture still shines through. I actually had a patient that came into my office yesterday telling me about when she heard I was Nigerian, she was so excited. She said, my religion is from there. This is a Spanish lady here. What religion? She said, Kilumi is a religion in Nigeria. I'm like, oh, really? She's like, you don't know about Kilumi? Do you know about Oshun? I'm like, I've heard about Oshun. How about Ifa? I'm like, I've heard about all these things. I'm like, okay, interesting. Our culture shines through wherever we go. And people pick it up. But what you're telling me now is how you first of all smell the roses now, yes, and the future. It's obviously you plan your future, you think about your future, sow into your future, but don't stay there. Be present now.
That's baby. So I learned those lessons quickly enough because again, I remember my university days. I was also fortunate enough. I was privileged to attend the University of Lagos. And I remember being in school and enjoying school, but I also remember wanting to leave school. Yes. And just right behind my Corona days comes my University of Lagos days. I'm also very, very nostalgic about my University of Lagos days as well. And because I was adult enough at that time, I remember still wanting to leave the university too. And so I kicked myself and like, man, if I could go back to a Ninjoku hall right now, I tell myself, just look, cool down.
Yeah.
Enjoy, just cool down, enjoy. And so because I learned those lessons, when we started to have kids, I reminded myself every single moment to be present in every single moment. So with the piggyback rides and the pushing them in the toy cars and the hugging. In fact, I remember that I'd hug my kids and I'd hug them and close my eyes and try to imbibe the moment, enjoy the moment. But I promise you that even with all of that, as I look back on their pictures, I see quite a number of those pictures and I don't even remember those moments anymore.
Wow.
And yet I told myself to be mindful and to be present, and I was.
Wow.
And yet I can't even remember. So can you imagine just how much more tragic it would have been if I was completely, if I wasn't even intentional?
Wow. 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 And our kids need it.
Yeah.
Our kids need it. I think our parents were around for us more than we are for our kids. There's more hustle today than there was yesterday. Is that the experience you have?
Well, there is a degree to which, yes, we are out there more. We seem to be doing more, but I think when it comes to the impact, maybe we have more impact. Remember that we grew up, or I grew up in the era when it was very, very fashionable for our parents to be social. So, in fact, I was telling somebody last week that was the era of the social clubs: a Papa Club, Lagos Country Club, Tuesday Club, Yoruba Tennis Club, Lagos Island Club, Egbe Omo Egba, United Brothers Social Club, Christians Youth Fellowship, Egbe Iranlowo Christian, all of that. So they were out a lot. And then also remember that was the era where it was fashionable to also have 2-3 wives and all of that. So depending on where you're coming from, the attention of your father was probably spread over many things. So different Instagram. So I find that it comes to is there were those who were neglected, there were those who were cared for, but I think we, at least the mindful ones amongst us, are more mindful of the impact we're having on our kids. So yes, there's a degree to which we're working a whole lot more, but when we're mindful, we're probably having more impact. For example, see me now. I am sitting here in America having this conversation with you. And the only reason, well, not the only reason, the primary reason why this is happening in the first place is because of the kids. We wanted them to grow up in a sort of different environment, number one. And then I also wanted to be there for them during these formative stages. I didn't want to have to be spending a lot of time in Nigeria.
Right.
Hence, I am here. I am not quite aware that my father would have made, as much as he loved us, that he would have made those sacrifices, because I remember that being away quite a lot. So yes, we work harder. Well, not harder. We work more. We might seem to be away more, but maybe we're a bit more mindful of the direct impact we have.
So, I think you're right. I think mindfulness is something that's becoming a very, very strong word that we use, because we're becoming more intentional about the impact we want to have on our kids, on our sphere of influence in general. So I hear you with that. So tell me, when you look back in time, I'm getting a sense that you had a strong upbringing. Was it a closely knit family?
So I came from a weird family. As far as I know, I come from the only polygamous, monogamous family. So we were polygamous and monogamous.
Family. Interesting.
We're polygamous and monogamous all at the same time. It's weird.
I can't wait for you to expand.
I've never seen another family like that. So it's that my father had 2 wives and at some point 3, but it was that all the kids came from one woman. And so my father had 2 wives in our house. His first wife, who was mommy, and the second wife, who was my mom. So at some point, you could have asked me up until primary 6 and beyond who my mother was, and I couldn't tell you, and that was difficult sometimes. So when 2 women show up to my open day in Corona, for example, and they ask me who both of them are, and they say they are my mommies, it was difficult. So it was that at the end of the day, when my father died, he had 2 wives. I mean, okay, one of them had died then. So that's the thing. By the time my father was dying, he had only my mom as his wife, but all the kids came from my mom. So there are 5 of us. So there are 2 wives principally, and there are 5 kids. We all live in the same house, but the 2 mothers acted as our mothers. So it was polygamous, but it was monogamous in a sense. So I don't have siblings coming from another wife. I just have my siblings coming from my mother, and that's all the 5 of us. And so I have a unique view into monogamy and polygamy at the same time. So when people get into this, people are getting more and more into this whole we're Africans, let's go back and do our African thing. Monogamy is not an African, polygamy is not an African, monogamy is not an African thing. It's polygamy that is an African thing, and so on. I'm perhaps able to speak to the subject matter. Look, I've been on both sides uniquely, so I can tell you what might work and what might not work, as it were. So yes, I did have that strong sense of a family. For example, my father was uniquely gifted, brilliant. In fact, his friends called him genius. All of my life, please listen to this carefully and just know what an achievement this man did. All of my life, apart from Saturdays and Sundays, all of my life, every morning and every evening when my father was at home, and even when he wasn't at home, without fail, every morning, every evening, the bell would ring for morning prayers. Every morning, every evening, all of his life.
Wow.
There was not a day that he took off because he was sick. All of his life. Sometimes the kids took off days because we were sick. Sometimes my mothers took off days because they were ill. Sometimes my uncles who stayed with us and my aunties who stayed with us took off days because they were ill. There was not a single day in his 73 years that is best said in Yoruba, Ti Daddy Pa Adura Jerry. Not a single day, which led us, the kids, to believing that our father was invincible and that he never fell sick.
Wow.
Right? It was later as we grew up that we knew that there were days when he was under the weather, but he still came to prayers. In fact, not only did he come to prayers, he would ring the bell and he would start off the prayers.
Wow. That's powerful.
So that's my background of my family.
That's powerful. That's so powerful to have that consistency. You know, I talk about certain things I talk about very frequently. One of them is authenticity. And authenticity for me, there are three words that come to mind. You know, consistency, transparency, and predictability. What your father displayed there was the consistency of his authentic nature. Consistently doing it, persevering, and going through all weathers to make this man. And look at the legacy he left behind, where we're now talking about it. And people are going to learn from that behavior, because that's a behavior. That's a learned behavior. He intentionally decided that he was going to do this, come rain, come shine, at all costs. And look at the imprint he left on you, and now on me.
And then if I speak, because people will often marvel and say, hey, you speak English well, and then you speak Yoruba well, and all of that. If I speak any Yoruba that you like or that affects you, it comes from that, because my father would insist 8 times out of 10 that we read the Bible in Yoruba. So every day of the week, as soon as we came of a certain age, one of the children would lead the prayers, and you had to read the Bible in Yoruba, say the lesson in Yoruba. You were allowed just a limited amount of English words. You couldn't be like Yoruba, English, so Jesus Wade, take that thing. My father was like, kilo mean, what's the meaning of take that thing? Oh, this on you, Bani. What rubbish? So so
that's
you
fantastic.
would read it. You would read it in Yoruba, and then afterwards, all of us will do our essay akosori, which in English is your golden verses. You will recite a verse in Yoruba. Sometimes it allow you English, but if you went English for a couple of days, my father would say, and then you'd have to go, Emio voice and all of that.
Oh my word.
And this was my father, whose English was better than all of us combined.
Wow. Wow.
So it wasn't like he was an illiterate. This was an England trained man.
That is powerful. That is so powerful. I got to say that I wish that was the case in my case, because we all speak Yoruba, but we don't speak it like we should, because we didn't have it ingrained in us like that. I think I'm actually going to adopt that with my kids, because that is powerful, because it's telling on you now.
Well, we did. My father would always tell me a proverb. He'd make me repeat it, and then he'd tell me all the meanings, the literal, the metaphorical. I'd never forget my father telling me that and then he'd make me repeat it. He'd tell me the meanings. He'd go all around about it and all of that.
Wow, that's amazing. So as you went through university, you went through secondary school, you went through university.
Yeah.
What made you go the route you took? The route you took into acting, into music. What made you go that route? Into comedy?
Okay, so my earliest, so I have, to answer that question, I have struggled as a multi-potentialite for all of my career. It is, in fact, it's the message that I'm going to record and now post perhaps tomorrow or in a couple of days. It's that it would seem that the more potential you have, the better your life. But that's not usually the
Ha,
case. The more
ha.
potential you are,
Wow. Wow.
uh,
Wow.
the
That's a
more
powerful
likely
statement.
the more likely you're going to make a mess of your life. The more your potential to do several things very well, the greater the possibility that you're going to do none of them and that you're going to be frustrated at the end of it. Yes, so
Wow.
I find that increasingly I am having to go back to the beginning to find out who I was and who I wanted to be before all of the other noise came in.
Wow.
And the answer that is clear is that I always wanted to be several things. I always wanted to be speaking. I wanted to be in the forefront performing, and I wanted to wear great clothes. Those were the things for me. So from the beginning, I wanted to be a prefect. I wanted to join the cadets in school because I liked the uniform, and I wanted to be the head cadet on the parade ground, calling out the marching orders. I wanted to be in the acting club. I wanted to be in the debate club. I wanted to be the best student in comprehension and all of those things, which is why when they started to call me the king of talk, it was something that I adopted and I owned. So that even if you watch my podcast now, you will never hear me introduce myself. I never come out and say, "Hi, my name is Teju Babyface." All you get as an indication as to who I am is what it says on the mug that is on the table in front of me, the king of talk. That's who I am.
That
So
is
yes,
very
my
interesting. That's a very
yeah.
interesting approach to it. So tell me a bit more about that. Why won't you introduce yourself?
It's a branding strategy.
Okay.
It's that I identify more by my calling right now than any other thing. It took me a long time to get here. Like I said, for a long time I was conflicted. What am I supposed to do? So take for example that my first incursion into entertainment was as an actor, and I did a movie way back in the day called Diamond Ring that was everywhere, and everybody, including I, was convinced that I should be an actor, right? But that didn't particularly work out, not for lack of trying. It just seemed as if life conspired against me to make that
Hmm.
work. And then I decided to go the comedy route, and I did comedy, and that worked so well as well. Even though you'd have these people who always told me, you need to go back to acting, and then there were these people who tell me you need to do comedy, and then I did that for a while, and then I decided I wanted to have a talk show, and then I jumped into that as well. And then we did that so well, and then there will be this remnant of people who tell me you need to go back to acting, you need to do more comedy. Oh, but we love the talk show as well. And then so I've I've always done so. It's been very difficult for me. In all of that, there are these people also who will not keep quiet, telling me that my calling is supposed to be a preacher, I'm supposed to be a pastor,
Hmm.
right? I know the scriptures, I can explain the scriptures, I can speak very well, and I have what it takes to be a pastor. There's a critical mass of people who still believe that till now, as I'm talking to you, and all
Wow.
of that. So, figuring out who I am supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be was very difficult. So, as to now owning the king of talk is me eventually zeroing down and saying that, look, my thing is talking. The expressions through which and by which I do it will change over time, right? It
Hmm.
could be acting, it could be comedy, it could be podcasting, it could be
Versatility.
preaching, it could be, yes, it could be going to law school, doing the law. But the thing you can be sure about is that I will be the king of talk. My thing is the gift of the gab. So even though it's not my name, I'd rather be identified by that. That's what I was born to do, to affect people and change people's life through talking.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And people can relate to what you just said. You know, what you just said about being jack of all, many trades, but master of none, can be detrimental in the grand scheme of things in terms of you now narrowing down and finding out what your actual purpose is.
More
What are you meant
options
to
are not,
be?
more options don't simplify your life, and proof that everyone can relate to is Netflix. I've never been on Netflix with 10 like there's nothing to scroll and scroll and you scroll and you watch something for a minute and then you didn't like that one, then you watch something for a minute. 10,000 titles, nothing to watch. Meanwhile, you never had a problem back in the day when all was shouting when you watch whatever they showed you, right? Limited options. you were happier. But now 1,000 options, nothing to watch. Having more options in terms of what you do does not necessarily simplify your life. In fact, it complicates it.
I don't know why we're having a bit of a connection problem. You are sounding metallic just now. I think it's better now.
Okay,
Can you hear me very
okay,
well? Okay.
I can hear you very well. Can you hear me now?
So what I did get out of what you just said was the fact that that different people that want different things from you, expect different things from you, and people can relate to the fact that finding your niche, finding where you shine best is a journey. I know I'm still on it, on that journey. Finding out where you shine best is a journey, but then shining nonetheless, every step of the way, being present in what you're doing and doing it to the best of your ability is key. And in what you do, I've seen that. I've seen you being able to talk into different spheres, into different things with different guests. And it's phenomenal. I think it's really, really phenomenal. And I really pray that we have more people coming out of Nigeria doing this. And to be honest with you, more people around the world that have something to say, developing a platform to say it, because we grow that way. We grow more with what other people say. I tell my community to always make sure that they filter everything that they hear here on the internet. Filter it. Make sure you check to make sure any facts that are laid down here are real, are true, especially for you. Make it your own, because I'm learning things from you. Yes, the community is learning things from you today that they're going to make their own, but they can only make their own by checking, fact checking. Very, very important. So I really endorse that.
Yes, sir.
So tell me this. You currently you live in the States. Your family is here in
Yes,
the
sir.
States.
Yes,
But you
sir.
still work, you still do things in Nigeria very, very active.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Is that virtual or you go home a lot to do that?
Well, first of all, this is me on the move. So, because of the internet thing, rather, the internet,
Okay.
I decided to live where I was in a part of the house that was further from the modem.
Wi-Fi. Yes. It
Yeah, so
sounds
I
much
said
better
maybe
now. So good.
maybe if
Good.
I move closer to somewhere, maybe would have a better service.
Definitely,
Yes.
definitely
Well,
closer.
as far as that goes, yes, I spend a lot of my time principally in the United States. But what we've now done is to make sure that I can also interface with Nigeria. It's for me, it's all a phase that one is in. Again, it's the phase of planting the family, making sure they get the roots very well. Another thing for me was I was on a journey. I'd come to the point in Nigeria before we left where I knew that what had brought me to where I was at that point could not take me beyond that point. I had seen many careers in whatever sphere. I'd seen many people taper out, and the unfortunate thing is that they would taper out at the point where they needed to be gaining strength the most. To borrow from the Bible, even though in that particular context it qualifies something else. It's that the glory of the latter shall be greater than the former. In fact, the more apt saying is to say that the end of a thing, according to King Solomon, the end of a thing is necessarily or should necessarily be better than the beginning. But for most people, that's not how life pans out. Most people actually suffer at the end of life.
Wow.
And so I knew that this was real. So at that point, standing on the precipice of 40, I was going to be 40 in Nigeria. I just had a distinct epiphany that what had brought me to this point will not take me all of the way. This Teju Babyface vibe and juice will not serve all the way into the 80s where I will need the bulk of the money. But I didn't know what to do next. So in addition to wanting the children to grow up in America and to have, for one of a better word or better term, better opportunities, I also needed time away from what I'd been doing. So all those things just worked together at that time. So yes, so that was that. But now that I have that clarity, I am quite clear that my primary constituent in whatever I do with my talk is Nigeria.
Hmm.
That's my primary constituent. Those are my people, So, and it's not only Nigeria, the location, it's Nigeria, the
That's
conceptual
true.
definition. So
Yes.
that wherever you are, as long as you're Nigerian or identify
Okay.
with Nigeria,
Yeah.
yes, you're my market. I am sent to you. So it's with that end in mind that one balances both things. And then finally, about that time, about 2016, which was what led to this spark in my mind, I was watching somebody on the internet, somebody on YouTube who said he was a big trader who was trading out of Singapore, but he was American. And so once every month or so, he'd jump on a jet and then come to the United States, go to Wall Street, conduct his business, and then get back on the jet and go to Singapore. And so what he said was the way the world is going, it is often necessary to set up family somewhere else and business somewhere else, so that when you're tired of the rubbish that goes on in your country or the place where you do business, you can just hop up on a jet and go home. And that's what he does. And that just, for some reason, that just stayed with me. And so I identified America as where I wanted to be home, and Nigeria as a place where I wanted to do business. And so, yes, so we're still in the process of setting that up and making that work.
And it's interesting. I really want to encourage people listening to this, because people define themselves geographically. And I say there's really no geography if you have the right business or the right product.
Yeah,
in your quest to thrive, as opposed to just survive or unfortunately fail, but in your quest to thrive, it's actually important to get rid of the boundaries you have in your mind.
yeah,
Just mentally get rid of the boundaries and develop businesses or products that are global, that
yes, sir.
appeal to people in China when you're talking here in the States, appeal to
Yes,
people
sir.
in Lagos when you're talking here in the States. So that's fantastic. That's fantastic. You're
Yes,
able to
sir.
do that.
Yes, sir. Well,
Fantastic.
it's taking look, it's not done without sacrifice. That's one thing that
Absolutely.
people also need to understand. This idea that we're going to go through, and I used to be like that, because you see what happens when you have the kind of background that I had, and when you enjoy success early on, is that you think you have a golden touch and that you're the exception to the rule. In fact, I remember
Right.
myself standing outside a wedding reception in the year 2008, and I was actually boasting to a girl that I was toasting at that wedding that I'm special. I will never forget that I'm special, that I was born under a dog food star, and that what happens to most people doesn't happen to me. And I know I was boasting, and I can just imagine that the pantheon of gods, the pantheon of the powers that control life, must have been laughing at me at that point and say, yes, this boy's time has come. It is time to teach him. And there's nobody who's special, right? We're going to run him through a decade of pain and
Ay,
experiences
ay,
so that he
ay.
gets out of this entitled mindset. So I used to be of that mindset that I'd escape what most people would escape and that I'd not go through stuff. But that's not true. And so as you're trying to set up this life that the gods have given to you, and you have this vision and this mission, whatever it is, know that there is necessarily going to be discomfiture and pain. There is no escaping that. And part of the pain is at some point a loss of momentum. There is no escaping that. Just know it, expect it, deal with it when it comes, and know that it won't always be night forever. It won't always rain forever.
Yes.
The sun is bound to come out sooner rather than later, or sooner or later.
Fantastic. Cycles of life.
Yes,
Cycles of
yes, sir.
life. No matter how much you're celebrating today,
Yes, sir.
there could be misery waiting for you tomorrow.
Oh boy, I didn't see my father dying when he did. I
Mm,
didn't see having to wait for a couple of years before we had
mm,
kids. I didn't see
mm.
myself getting to a point in my career. In fact, I remember that I used to judge entertainers whose careers took a dip or whose careers petered out. And I used to think they didn't know how to play the game. So I'd be
Mm.
standing there, and when you know how to talk and you have a little wisdom, you will postulate and you talk rubbish. Just talk rubbish. I used to be of that mind, just talking rubbish. And life was just in one corner looking at me. Like, don't worry, you will learn.
You will
Your
learn
time
it
is. Don't worry,
eventually.
you will learn. Don't
And,
worry.
and that's why this kind of thing, what we're doing right now, I think is very important, because I really believe there are many holes that I avoided falling into because I looked at many people that I would see as mentors, either by their books or their stage performances, and not fall into those same holes because they said it. Talking about it, talking about the mistakes you've made, talking about, what life has taught you. It's important to talk about it and teach people so that they don't fall into the same holes.
Yeah.
So I really, really appreciate you coming on to talk about, the life you've led, talk about the pluses, the minuses. I'm gonna stretch you a little bit and ask you to talk about a mistake you've made, either as a kid in your adult life, but the mistake that you made that you came out with amazing pearls that obviously as principles, but okay, I can't make this mistake again. No. So this is what I'll do going forward, and this is what I won't do. Anything in particular?
Well, in the mortal words of the philosopher Olamide, mélòó mélòó la fẹ́ wí, mélòó 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 la fẹ́ sọ. Let's start with the one one of the ones that's on top of the list for me. Because of the way I was brought up, where my father was my hero, and where I was very into mentoring and mentorship and listening to the sages and the elders. The downside is that it makes you almost idolize people of authority, people who seem to have authority, people who speak, so that you take what they say hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
Right.
No questions.
So as a church boy, you can imagine that I did some really stupid things because they said God said. Yes.
Yes. Oh, that sounds so familiar.
They said God said. So I did some stupid things. I gave stupid money. I sowed stupid seeds. I did things that I now realize set me back by years, right? Because they said God said. And God, or the gods, or the pantheon of gods, or the council of God must have been heaven looking at me that, well, you're still young. A fool at 40 is a fool forever. Let's see if you get this lesson before you're 40. Right. So I did all those things, and I'm now standing north of 40, in my mid-40s, having learned those lessons, I believe, early enough, and knowing that I'd never go back and do those stupid things again, ever. Knowing that God did not say, knowing that you're not about to give a penny and get a pound. You're not about to sow your Toyota and get a Mercedes. And pastor comes up and talks about how God told him one day to give his Toyota, and he sold his Toyota. And then a few years later, somebody gave him only Mercedes. If you notice, those things happen to only pastors. It is pastors that are giving pastors. Don't happen to other people. So you need to learn. And the lesson I learned from that, and this goes into other areas of life. I had people whom I considered mentors who were telling me stuff, and I take that stuff, Nishuloka, take it, hook, line, and sinker, and I'll go and do it. And if I had problems, then I'll run to them. It is to them that I will run. And whatever they said was the word and the law and all of that. And you figure out at some point that every person is winging it, including I, whom you're listening to. Nobody has you figured out. Nobody. The person whom you're going to for wisdom and for counsel, he too is winging it. He's trying to get it right. It's just that the very skilled ones amongst them will not tell you that they have a facade and they've packaged and they've done it very well, so that even when they don't know, they are putting out to you, which is why people are always shocked when their pastors or their spiritual leaders are caught in sin, because the man packaged himself so well, you thought that he knew everything, but even the guy is winging it. So what I have learned, my pearl from that is that at a certain point in life, it's good to have mentors as a young person. You need mentors without which you're not going to stand and grow and learn. But at a certain point, which again, I come to one of my favorite sayings of all time: a fool at 40 is a fool forever. And the flip side of that, the same coin, is that life begins at 40.
Wow.
By the time you're circa 40, 41, 42, you must have learned enough from your mentors at that point to cut off, to disengage, and to have the mindset that, you know what, I don't know everything, but I have learned enough and I have enough confidence in my own judgment to know that I would even rather be wrong in my own judgment than to be right with a mentor's counsel.
Wow.
I'm not saying you don't know what you're saying, sir, but I have known enough now, or I should have known enough, or I should have enough independence right now to be confident, to be wrong in my own judgment than to be right with your own judgment, sir. You are right, too.
Wow.
But I'd rather be wrong in my steam than to be right with you, sir.
Wow.
Because I believe that what I'm doing altruistically, and I've learned enough. So those were my mistakes. That's what I've learned. And,
Wow.
you know,
So that
that's it.
pearl, I'm going to give
Yeah.
that pearl a different spin. That's a very important pearl. And
Yeah.
it's important to know that, first of all, no one has it figured out. Nobody on this planet has it figured out. People have experiences and they've developed principles that they can now apply to duplicate those experiences, the kind of experiences they want to have, the outcomes that they're actually desiring. But no one has it figured out. Now, having said that, though, mentoring for me, I believe that your friends should be your mentors. The friends you choose to have as friends should be able to add value, because a mentor is someone that adds value to me consistently and is able to give me some perspective that I either don't have or I have incompletely, but a new, fresh perspective that adds to my own and creates a more global perspective. You know, so having friends, the right friends, they are friends that will mentor you, but not mentor in the sense of when we were much younger. I hear that. It's good to have independent thinking and to be able to be convicted in your thinking, where you, before you shift base, okay, it's not this way, it's that way. You have to be sold, totally sold on that new perspective, but not blocking it totally.
No,
There should be a way in. If
you
there's
must never
something
get to
missing,
the point. Yeah, you must never get to the point where you think that you know everything, right? You must never get to the point where you must be willing to be open to other insights. But when it comes down to the decision that you have to make after a while as an adult, it must come to the decision that you're making by yourself
yes,
for your reasons. I haven't taken all of the other input from everybody. You must not ever say that, well, he told me to, so I am going to. Well, she told me to, I'm going to. Because when it doesn't work out, the Yorubas have a saying that I like. They say that abanida kò ní bá ní débẹ̀, abánidébẹ̀ kò ní bá ní gbé, abánigbé kò ní bá ní tàn. It just simply means that the person who advises you will not always follow you to see the thing to its end. And if it goes wrong in the end, usually the same people who advise you are nowhere to be found.
Wow.
And my best example in life is the late MK Abiola. It was people who told him, don't grieve for Abacha. I know, in fact, from what I heard, he was in England, having escaped. And they told him, no, you cannot give up your mandate. No, on June 12th, we stand. And he came back by himself. And we know how that story ends.
Wow.
Now, whether that was good or whether that was bad is neither here nor there. But the point is, these people who advised him to do that, how many of them stood by him all the way through and were willing to die with him when the time came?
Wow.
If he made that decision on his own steam and decided, having heard what they said, that he was coming back, then yes, that was on his own steam.
Absolutely.
But if he made that decision because they said so, no, that is the
wow. So that's a very powerful statement. So don't make decisions based on what your mentors tell you.
No.
Someone says, one of the audience says here, Wally says here, there are mentors at different stages in your life. And they don't always have to be older than you. They can be younger than you. They can be your colleagues. But it's important to be discerning enough to know when this mentor is no longer a mentor, or this mentor and their perspective, you've not bought it. It's not your own yet. Like you said, don't just take what they say as gospel and do it. It has to tally with what you think, what you so you decide. You should be able to decide and say, I decided to do this because I decided to, not because someone told me to do it or say it. You're exactly. So right about it.
Exactly. You said it was Wale. Wale Walalu Bariga.
Wale in where is Wale? Wale's in London.
Walalu Barika. That's exactly what it is. There are stages in life. Look, at some point, as I said, as a young person, at some point, it is okay to even take the advice hook, line, and sinker. That's why you're young. That's why we learn. It's just that At some point, you must be a man and stand by your own decisions, even if
Absolutely.
you take the wrong decisions. Don't close your mind. Take from people. But it must never be. And that's where we see a lot of dogmatic religious people. Our
Mm,
papa said, our
mm.
our person said, this is what they said. Just don't let go of your mind. You must be able to stand by your own. Okay, so it works out great. It doesn't work out. Well, I made the decision, right?
Wow.
I'm gonna stand by it. I'm gonna live with it. It's my decision.
It has to make sense to you. It
Yes, it
has
has
to
to make
make
sense.
sense to you.
Yeah.
Very, very
Yes.
important.
Yes.
Teju Babyface, you've been fantastic, and there's so much
Yes,
to
sir.
learn from you. I hope you're going to come and grace this podcast again, because there's so much we didn't touch on. There's so many pearls I know bursting within you. I want to leave the audience with something from you in current times that has been a big part of your success, a big part of where you've come to today, a big part of the memories you now have of the past, right? The good memories, and why you can confidently say that you're obsessed with good success.
Thank you. I have, whether it's a gift, whether it's grace, I've never been afraid to die to the current to be able to step into the future. Again, maybe it comes from that special feeling that I've always had, that I will always land on my feet. But I have found that, and people who follow me have heard me say this maybe a billion times now. It is probably my single favorite thing that Yeshua, Jesus, ever said. It's that unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, a grain of corn, it remains as it is, but that if it dies, it brings forth much more. It's in the
Only if it
sense that, look,
dies.
yes, only if it dies. In the sense that, look, a kernel of wheat is always going to die anyway. If it falls to the ground, it's going to die.
Gonna die.
But if it is intentionally killed before it falls to the ground, if it is intentionally buried in the soil, it is still going to die. But then after a while, it's going to produce much more. And I have found that that has been the secret to whatever success I have and the success of others as well. At some point, your current stage is going to expire anyway.
Yes.
Whether or not you listen to the promptings of life and move before the stage expires, or whether you refuse and stay in the current success that you have, that stage is always going to die. Life, when it begins to prompt you, is life giving you an opportunity to be a partaker in the process and move or kill that stage so that you can resurrect later, or you can refuse and stay there and expire with the stage. So the encouragement is, you must know that life is dynamic and it's in stages, which is why who you were in high school was not who you were in elementary school. Who you are in college is not who you were in the past. And it goes on and on. And so you have to realize that, for example, when you get married, who you are as a married person is not who you were as a single person. Many people don't get that. We just think life goes on as usual. If you master or understand or are a student of this one principle, letting go and moving to the next stage will never be a problem for you. It's what is going to help you get out from Egypt, through the wilderness and into the promised land, and so on and so forth. But if you hold on to it, and that's the problem of most people, including our country, if you hold on to it, if you must stay in that office, if you must hold on to it, you're eventually going to lose it anyway.
Absolutely.
You're eventually going to lose it. And if you lose it, if life has to take it from you, you're not going to get it back. If you let it go, life will bring it back to you in multiples. But if you hold on to it,
wow,
man, it's going to go.
Yeah. Wow. Someone asked just now, just before I let you go, what if they say, what if the mistake that you made in the past is not, it can't be corrected? Because I mentioned the fact that we learn from our mistakes, and they asked, what if the mistake that you made cannot be corrected? What do you say to that?
I say that, so the problem with, so life is chiastic, and we don't have time to go through that. Life is chiastic in the sense that as it happens in the beginning, so it will happen in the end. The chiastic paradigm is that things happen in concentric circles up until the middle. Let me try to see if I can make it without being complicated. When you're born in life, you come into life, it's out of your control how you're born. That's the beginning.
Absolutely.
At the end, it is out of control how you die. That's chiastic. As it happens in the beginning, so it happens in the end. right? So a chiastic thing is where something that happens in the beginning is mirrored in the end. And then the next step is also the penultimate step. And then the next step is also the penultimate step up until you get into the core. I say all of this to say that life is in concentric circles. There's nothing that you're going through now that you've not gone through before when you really think about it. And there is nothing that you will go through in the future that you're not going through right now.
Nothing new under the sun.
It is just different levels. If you pass the test on one level, then you go to the next level, as it were. So with mistakes, making mistakes is not a problem. Life will always give you another chance. You're never going to run out of chances in life. The only problem is the limitation of time. Again, we go back to the scripture from whence we started. Teach us to number our days. Look, if we lived to 200 years, there'll be enough time to make many mistakes. Enough time, because if you make a mistake at 20, then you're going to probably get a chance back when you're 35. If you make it at 35, you're going to get a chance maybe when you're 60. If you make it at 60, you get a chance maybe when you're 100. You know, the more the mistakes you make, the lengthier the time between your recovery and all of that. But is that we have a finite amount of time. So if we're going to live to 80, you can't keep making the same mistakes, or you keep repeating the same level. So making mistakes is not the problem. It's that do you have time to recover in between the mistakes? Which is why the weeping prophet said that it is good for a young man to be tried and to weep while he's yet in his youth. It is good for him to put his mouth in the dust. Maybe God will have mercy on him and bring him up again. What he's essentially saying is that when you're young and you make mistakes, you have time to recover. So whatever the mistake that you made, as long as it is not one of those mistakes that take you out of life,
exactly.
Right? Yes, well, as long as not one of those things that take you out. As long as you are still living and breathing, don't worry, you'll get your chance again. It's just a question of do you have enough time? So the mistake that a 60-year-old makes is not quite as inconsequential as the mistake that a 20-year-old makes. Same mistake, only that a 20-year-old has more time. Relatively speaking, again, the 20-year-old could die tomorrow. It's not guaranteed, right? But all things being equal.
I see why they call you King of Talk. I have to have you on here again. Are you going to come and join us again?
Absolutely.
Please.
Yeah, look, fantastic. I'm even looking for a doctor, which is why I did this. I've been looking for a doctor in the United States who I can be calling anytime because their bills are too. So I said, let me do this for Dr. Banji and have him on.
We'll discuss that offline.
So you have me. You got me. You got me anytime. You got me anytime.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Community, Teju Babyface, please take the pearls. And just remember, whatever mistake you've made, there are pearls to be picked up from the ground once you fall. Pick up those pearls. Because if you don't pick them up, you're going to fall down again to pick up those same pearls. Pick them up, use them. Mistakes that can't be corrected, I agree with you, Teju Babyface. If you can't correct it, it doesn't mean it didn't serve a purpose. You got pearls from it that you're going to use to apply and implement in something else. So use them. Wow. Fantastic. Till next time.
Sir.
Till next time, Teju. I bid you goodbye. Community, I hope you got those pearls. I got them. Listen to this thing again and again and apply them to your lives and make it better and thrive. Till next time.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye, sir. Fantastic.